Hey, my name's Tyler Brooks. I'm 24 and I live in a small apartment on the outskirts of Fresno, California. It's nothing fancy, just a one-bedroom spot with thin walls and a view of a parking lot, but it suits me fine. I work at a phone repair shop downtown, fixing cracked screens, dead batteries, and whatever else people drop off. The pay's decent enough to cover rent and bills, and I don't have to think too much about it. Most days blur together. Clock in at 9, deal with customers who swear their phone just stopped working, clock out at 6, grab takeout on the way home. No big dreams or 5-year plans. I've dated a few girls over the years, but nothing stuck. They always wanted more ambition, more excitement. And I guess I just didn't have it to give. That's how things were until I met Lucas at work. He started about 3 months ago, fresh out of community college, and we hit it off right away. He's 22, a bit younger than me, but we've got the same sarcastic humor and love for old-school rock bands like Guns N' Roses. We'd chat during slow shifts, complaining about picky customers or sharing memes on our breaks. One afternoon, after a particularly long day, he slapped me on the back and said, "Dude, you should come over for dinner sometime. My mom's making tacos this Friday. We can play some games after." I hesitated at first. I'm not big on social stuff, but Lucas was cool and I figured why not. It beat another night alone with Netflix. Friday rolled around and I drove over to his place after work. Fresno's suburbs are all the same. Wide streets, cookie-cutter houses with manicured lawns and American flags fluttering in the breeze. His house was a modest 2-story with a blue door and a basketball hoop in the driveway. I parked my beat-up Honda Civic and knocked, feeling a little out of place in my faded jeans and work shirt. Lucas opened the door with a grin, wearing sweats and holding a controller. "Tyler, come on in, man. Food's almost ready." The inside was cozy, wood floors, family photos on the walls, and the smell of sizzling beef and spices wafting from the kitchen. Lucas led me to the living room, where an old leather couch faced a flat-screen TV. "Make yourself at home. Mom's finishing up in there." I nodded and sat down, glancing around. The place felt lived in, warm, like a real home compared to my empty apartment. That's when she walked in. Marissa Cole, Lucas's mom. She came from the kitchen carrying a tray of chips and salsa, and I froze for a second. She was around 39, I guessed, but she didn't look it. Not in a trying too hard way, just naturally put together. Her dark hair was pulled back in a loose ponytail, and she wore simple jeans with a fitted black top that showed off her figure without being flashy. Her eyes were a warm hazel, and she moved with this quiet confidence, like she owned the space without needing to prove it. "You must be Tyler," she said, setting the tray down and extending her hand. Her voice was smooth with a slight laugh in it. "Lucas has told me about you. Glad you could make it." I shook her hand, feeling a spark I couldn't explain. "Nice to meet you, Mrs. Cole." She smiled, correcting me gently. "Just Marissa, no need for formalities." Up close there was something about her, maybe the way her eyes crinkled at the corners or how she held herself. That hit me differently. She wasn't like the girls my age, all selfies and drama. She seemed real, grounded, with a depth that made me curious. We sat down to eat at the kitchen table. Tacos with all the fixings, fresh guac, and cold beers from the fridge. The conversation flowed easy. Lucas talked about a tough customer that day. I shared a story about a guy who dropped his phone in a toilet, and Marissa chimed in with questions about our jobs. She laughed at our jokes, but there was a maturity to her, like she'd seen more of life than we had. At one point, she mentioned being a single mom since Lucas was little. His dad left years ago, and how she balanced work as a nurse with raising him. It wasn't a sob story. She said it matter-of-factly, with a shrug and a sip of her beer. After dinner, Lucas and I headed to the living room to play some games. We cracked open more beers, loaded up FIFA on the console, and got into it. Trash-talking, laughing when one of us scored. Marissa poked her head in once or twice, offering more snacks or asking if we needed anything. Each time I caught myself glancing at her a little too long. Midway through a match, Lucas paused the game to grab another drink, and I leaned back, feeling buzzed from the beer. Without thinking, I muttered, "Man, your mom's hotter than most girls I've dated." Lucas burst out laughing, punching my arm. "Dude, gross, that's my mom." I chuckled too, playing it off as a joke, but my face heated up. I hadn't meant to say it out loud, it just slipped. As Lucas unpaused the game, I glanced toward the kitchen and saw Marissa standing there, drying a dish. She must have heard because she looked right at me, not angry, not shocked, just curious. Her eyes lingered a second longer than normal, and the corner of her mouth twitched in a subtle smile. Then she turned away, like nothing happened. The rest of the night went fine. We played a few more rounds, talked about weekend plans, but that moment stuck with me. Driving home later, the cool Fresno night air rushing through my open window, I replayed it in my head. Why had I said that? And why did her look make my stomach twist? It wasn't just attraction, it was something deeper, like she'd seen right through me. I shook it off, telling myself it was the beer talking. But as I pulled into my parking spot and killed the engine, I couldn't stop thinking about her. That one glance had planted a seed, and I had no idea what it would grow into. A few days after that dinner at Lucas's place, things started to feel off in a way I couldn't shake. I'd replayed the night in my head a dozen times, the tacos, the games, that stupid slip of the tongue. I kept telling myself it was nothing, just beer-fueled idiocy, but Marissa's lingering look haunted me. Work dragged on like usual, a stream of shattered iPhones and frustrated customers. I fixed a guy's Samsung that had taken a swim in his pool, all while my mind wandered back to her hazel eyes and that subtle smile. By Wednesday, I was scrolling through Instagram during my lunch break, mindlessly liking memes when a notification popped up. Marissa Cole started following you. I froze, sandwich halfway to my mouth. How did she even find me? Lucas must have mentioned my handle at some point. I clicked on her profile. Nothing flashy, just photos of Fresno sunsets, a few with Lucas at a baseball game, and some artsy shots of coffee mugs and books. No selfies, no thirst traps. It suited her. I followed back, my thumb hesitating for a second. Then, as if on cue, she liked one of my old posts, an blurry shot of me hiking in the Sierra Nevada foothills from last summer. Then another, a picture of my workbench at the shop, tools scattered everywhere. My heart picked up pace. Was this a coincidence, or was she checking me out? I didn't message her. What would I even say? Hey, thanks for the likes. Sorry about calling you hot in front of your son? No way, but it stuck with me through the rest of the shift. That evening, Lucas texted, Yo, tacos were a hit. Mom's making pasta Friday if you're down again. Games after? I stared at the screen for a minute. Part of me wanted to bail, avoid the awkwardness, but another part, the one that kept picturing Marissa's smile, typed back, Sure, sounds good. Friday came and I found myself putting in a little extra effort. Instead of my usual faded tee, I grabbed a clean button-up shirt from the back of my closet, ran a comb through my hair, even splashed on some cologne I hadn't used in months. It felt ridiculous, like I was prepping for a date, but I couldn't help it. Driving over, the Fresno heat still lingered in the air, the sun dipping low and casting long shadows across the suburbs. Lucas's house looked the same, welcoming, unassuming. He greeted me at the door with a fist bump. Back for round 2, huh? Mom's pasta is killer. Secret family recipe or something. The kitchen smelled amazing. Garlic, tomatoes, fresh basil. Marissa was at the stove stirring a pot, her back to us. She turned when Lucas called out and our eyes met. That same subtle smile appeared, but this time it felt warmer, more intentional. Tyler, good to see you again, she said, wiping her hands on a dish towel. She wore a simple sundress, nothing revealing, but it hugged her figure just enough to make my throat dry. Hope you're hungry. Dinner was casual, like last time. We talked about work. Lucas griped about a rude customer. I shared a story about a kid who glued his phone to his hand by accident. Marissa laughed easily, her voice carrying that smooth tone that made everything she said sound thoughtful. But I noticed the differences. She held my gaze a beat longer than necessary, her questions directed more at me. So, Tyler, what do you do for fun outside of fixing phones? She asked, leaning forward slightly. When I mentioned hiking, she nodded. I used to love that, getting away from the city noise. It's been years, though. There was a hint of something in her words, like a double meaning I couldn't quite pin down. Then, midway through the meal, she brought it up casually, almost playfully. Lucas mentioned you had some interesting things to say last time. Lucas snorted, shoving pasta into his mouth. Yeah, dude called you hot or something. Classic Tyler. I nearly choked on my bite, my face burning. Marissa just smiled, her eyes on me. Well, it's been a while since I've heard something like that. Flattering, I suppose. The way she said it wasn't accusatory, it was light, almost inviting. I mumbled something about it being a joke, but she waved it off. No need to apologize. Honesty's rare these days. After we cleared the plates, Lucas headed upstairs to grab a new controller for the game. Be right back. Don't start without me. That left me alone with Marissa in the kitchen. I offered to help with the dishes, grabbing a sponge to rinse plates. The sink was small, forcing us close. The air felt thicker, charged. She handed me a wet bowl, our fingers brushing for a split second. About what you said last time, she started, her voice lower now. Were you serious? Or just messing around? I paused, water running over my hands. My heart pounded. I could have backed out, laughed it off, but something in her eyes, curious, vulnerable, made me honest. I meant it, I admitted, keeping my voice steady. You're different. In a good way. More real than the girls I've dated. She didn't pull away or scold me. Instead, she leaned against the counter, crossing her arms. It's been a long time since anyone looked at me like that. After my marriage ended, I just faded into the background. Became Lucas's mom. Invisible, you know? Her words hung there, raw and unguarded. I nodded, understanding more than I let on. You're not invisible to me. Lucas's footsteps echoed from upstairs, breaking the moment. Marissa straightened up, flashing a quick smile. Thanks for helping with the dishes. We rejoined him in the living room, playing games like nothing happened. But everything had shifted. Driving home that night, the city lights blurring past, I checked my phone at a red light. Another like from her on Instagram, an old photo of me at a concert. It wasn't just polite anymore. There was something building, quiet and undeniable. I didn't know where it would lead, but for the first time in a while, my simple life felt like it had a spark. The weekend after that second dinner dragged on, my mind stuck on Marissa like a glitchy app I couldn't close. Her likes on my Instagram kept popping up. Another old hiking photo, then one from a concert I'd forgotten about. Each notification sent a jolt through me, making work feel even more mundane. I'd stare at cracked screens, my thoughts drifting to her voice in the kitchen. That raw admission about feeling invisible. Lucas noticed I was quieter during shifts, but I brushed it off as tiredness. Deep down, I knew something was brewing, and it scared me a little. Then, Sunday evening, my phone buzzed with a direct message on Instagram. It was her. Lucas is out with friends tonight. If you're not busy, swing by for some tea? I baked cookies earlier. My stomach flipped. This wasn't through Lucas, no group invite, no pretense, it was just us. I reread it 3 times, weighing the risks. Lucas was my friend, the guy I joked with every day at work. What if he found out? What if this blew up? But the pull was stronger. I typed back, "Sure, be there in 20. I drove over as the sun set, the Fresno sky turning shades of orange and purple. The neighborhood was quiet, kids' bikes scattered on lawns, the hum of distant traffic. Pulling up to their house felt different this time. No Lucas's car in the driveway, just hers. I knocked, and Marissa opened the door almost immediately, wearing a soft sweater and jeans, her hair down for once. "Tyler," she said, her smile genuine but a touch nervous. "Come in, tea's brewing." The house felt warmer without Lucas around. Dim lights in the living room, a jazz playlist playing softly from a speaker on the mantel. No TV blaring, no games console humming. She led me to the kitchen where 2 mugs steamed on the counter next to a plate of chocolate chip cookies still warm from the oven. "Earl Grey okay?" she asked, handing me one. I nodded, taking a seat at the table. The air smelled like vanilla and bergamot, comforting but charged. We started with small talk, how my week was, a funny story from her shift at the hospital. But it didn't stay surface level for long. She leaned against the counter, stirring her tea slowly. "You know, after you left last time, I couldn't stop thinking about what you said. About me not being invisible." Her voice was quieter, more vulnerable. I set my mug down, meeting her eyes. "I meant it. You've got this presence. It's hard to explain, but it's there." She nodded, looking away for a moment like she was gathering her thoughts. My marriage ended 8 years ago. He left for someone younger. Someone who didn't come with baggage like a kid. I threw myself into being Lucas's mom, into work, and somewhere along the way I stopped feeling like a woman, like anyone would see me that way again. Her words hung heavy, raw in the quiet kitchen. I listened, feeling a pang in my chest. "That sounds lonely," I said softly. "But you're not baggage. You're incredible. Raising Lucas alone, keeping it all together. That's strength." She smiled faintly, stepping closer to the table. "It's been lonely, but talking to you, it reminds me I'm still here." We sat in silence for a bit, the music filling the gaps, a slow saxophone riff that matched the mood. I shared a little about myself too, how my life felt stuck in neutral, no real direction, just going through motions. "You make me feel seen too," I admitted, like I'm not just some guy fixing phones. The conversation deepened as the evening went on. She talked about the early days after the divorce, the nights she'd cry after Lucas went to bed, wondering if she'd ever feel desired again. I opened up about my failed dates, how they always ended because I couldn't pretend to be more ambitious than I was. We laughed at some of it, the shared awkwardness breaking the tension. At one point, she refilled our mugs, her hand brushing mine deliberately this time. The room felt smaller, the air thicker. Then she asked the question that changed everything. "Tyler, you know this could mess things up, right? Lucas is your friend, my son." Her eyes searched mine, serious but not pulling away. I swallowed, my pulse racing. "I know, I've thought about it nonstop, but I don't want to stop. Not if you feel it too." She set her mug down, stepping around the table until she was right in front of me. "I do," she whispered. We were close now, inches apart. I could smell her perfume, something light and floral. Her hand found mine, and I stood, pulling her gently into an embrace. It started slow, tentative, but the barrier crumbled. We crossed that line, the one we'd been skirting, in the quiet of her home. No rush, no words needed, just the acknowledgement that this was real. Hours later, as the clock ticked past midnight, I lay there with her, the house silent except for our breathing. We didn't talk about tomorrow or labels. It was just us, in that moment, raw and unguarded. When dawn started creeping through the curtains, I knew I had to go before Lucas got back. She walked me to the door, her fingers lingering on my arm. "Be careful," she said softly. I nodded, stealing one last look before stepping out into the cool morning air. Driving away, the streets empty and Fresno stirring awake, I felt a mix of exhilaration and fear. Everything had changed. We hadn't promised anything, but that night had sealed something between us. Now the real challenge began. The days after that night blurred into a haze of stolen moments and constant paranoia. I'd wake up replaying it all, the jazz music, her confessions, the way her touch felt like something I'd been missing without knowing it. Work became a distraction, but even there, Lucas was a reminder of the line we'd crossed. We'd joke about customers or plan game nights, and I'd force a laugh, all while my stomach twisted with guilt. He was my friend, the guy who'd brought me into his world without hesitation. And here I was, sneaking around with his mom. We kept it quiet at first, careful not to raise flags. Marissa and I messaged through Instagram DMs, deleting them right after. Simple stuff. "Lucas has a late shift tonight. Doors unlocked." I'd show up after dark, parking a block away to avoid his car spotting mine. Those evenings were our escape. Sitting on her couch with wine, talking for hours. She'd open up more about her ex, how he'd drained her emotionally before leaving, making her doubt her worth. I'd share my own insecurities, how my life felt like a holding pattern, no real connections until now. It wasn't just physical anymore. I cared about her laughs, her stories, the way she lit up when I complimented her. "You make me feel young again," she'd say, her head on my shoulder. But we'd always cut it short before Lucas got home, me slipping out the back door like a thief. As weeks passed, the secrecy started weighing on me. I found myself making excuses to see her more, dropping by with forgotten tools Lucas supposedly needed, or offering to fix something around the house. One afternoon, I was over pretending to check a leaky faucet in the kitchen. Lucas was at work, but Marissa and I ended up tangled on the couch, whispers turning into something deeper. That's when we heard the front door click. Lucas home early from a canceled shift. My heart slammed against my ribs. Go, she hissed, pushing me toward the back. I bolted out the sliding glass door, crouching behind the fence until I heard him inside. Peeking through a gap, I saw him hug her hello, asking why her face was flushed. Just the heat, she said smoothly, but her voice cracked a little. I waited in the shadows for 20 minutes before sneaking to my car, adrenaline pumping. Close call, too close. That night, I couldn't sleep. Lucas texted me about grabbing beers the next day, and I felt like scum agreeing. At work, he started noticing things. Mom's been in a good mood lately, he'd say casually during lunch. She's even humming while cooking. Weird, right? I'd nod, forcing a grin. Yeah, maybe she's got a new hobby. But inside, panic brewed. He mentioned me coming over more often, joking, "You're basically family now, man." It stung. Family didn't do what I was doing. The guilt gnawed at me during shifts, making my hands shake while soldering circuits. Lucas had my back at work, covering for me when I was late. Betraying that felt wrong, but stopping with Marissa felt impossible. She was the first person who made me feel truly wanted, not just tolerated. One evening after another secret meetup, I brought it up. We were in her bedroom, the house quiet with Lucas out at a movie. I pulled away mid-kiss, sitting up. "What if Lucas finds out?" I asked, my voice barely above a whisper. She sighed, propping herself on an elbow, her hair tousled. "I've thought about that every day. He's my son, my everything. If he knew—" She trailed off, eyes distant. "It would hurt him. He'd see it as a betrayal." I nodded, rubbing my temples. "He's my friend. We game together, talk about everything. This could ruin that." She reached for my hand, her touch steady. "I know, but Tyler, you've woken something in me. I don't want to go back to feeling like a shadow in my own life. Invisible, forgotten." Her words hit hard. I felt the same pull. We talked it through, weighing the risks, but neither of us suggested ending it. "We'll be careful," she said finally, pulling me close again. "For now." The tension built like a storm cloud. Lucas's comments got sharper. Once he asked why I was texting so much during breaks, eyeing my phone. "Got a girl or something?" I laughed it off, but my pulse raced. Another time, I nearly got caught leaving her place late. His car turned the corner just as I ducked into mine. Hiding became exhausting, a game of shadows and alibis, yet every stolen hour with Marissa made it worth it. She wasn't just a fling, she was becoming my anchor, someone who saw past my aimless life. But the fear lingered. What if one slip shattered everything? I was torn between the warmth she gave me and the loyalty I owed Lucas. Standing at that crossroads, I wondered how long we could keep this balanced before it all came crashing down. As the weeks turned into months, that crossroads I stood at felt less like a choice and more like an inevitable pull. The secrecy had woven itself into our lives, a fragile web of deleted messages and hurried goodbyes. I'd catch myself staring at my phone during slow shifts at the shop, waiting for her next "Lucas is out" text. When it came, I'd feel that rush, equal parts excitement and dread. But the guilt never fully faded. Lucas was still my buddy, the one I'd high-five after a tough repair or vent to about annoying customers. We'd grab lunches together, talk about girls he was seeing or games we wanted to play. Each time I'd smile and nod, but inside it felt like I was living a double life. How long before a crack showed? One rainy Tuesday evening, after a long day wrestling with water-damaged phones, I headed straight to her place. Lucas was at a friend's for a study group, or so he said. The Fresno streets were slick, headlights reflecting off puddles, and I parked 2 blocks away as usual. Marissa opened the door in a cozy robe, her hair damp from a shower, and pulled me inside with a kiss that tasted like relief. We ended up on the couch, the storm pattering against the windows, a forgotten movie playing in the background. But instead of losing ourselves like before, I pulled back, my hand on her cheek. "This isn't just fun for me anymore," I said, my voice low. "I don't want to keep sneaking around like this, like I'm only here when he's not." She sat up, her expression shifting from contentment to something more serious. The room felt heavier, the jazz we'd put on earlier now just white noise. "Tyler," she started, tucking a strand of hair behind her ear, "I've been thinking the same. You're not just a distraction. You've made me feel alive again. Like I matter beyond being a mom or a nurse. She paused, her hazel eyes searching mine. But Lucas, he's everything to me. If we push this further, it could break him. Us. I nodded, feeling the weight of it all. We'd danced around this conversation before, but tonight it hit different. I thought about the close calls, the backdoor escapes, the flushed excuses. He's my friend too. I hate lying to him, but stopping now? That feels worse. You're the first person who's made me want more than just getting by. We talked it out, no raised voices, no ultimatums. She shared how her ex had left her feeling discarded, how raising Lucas alone had been her anchor, but also her cage. I don't want to go back to that emptiness, she admitted, her voice cracking slightly. I held her hand, tracing circles on her palm. You won't. We can figure this out, together. Not hiding forever, but not rushing either. The rain eased outside, leaving a quiet drip from the gutters. We didn't solve everything that night. There were no grand plans or promises etched in stone. But we acknowledged it. This was real, worth the risk. I choose you, I whispered, pulling her close. Even if it's messy. She nodded against my chest. And I choose you. For as long as it feels right. We spent the rest of the evening wrapped in that decision, the movie credits rolling unnoticed. It wasn't fireworks or fairy tale vows, just two people admitting they were in too deep to turn back. Life after that didn't change overnight. We still met when Lucas was out, still deleted our trails. Something shifted inside me. The guilt lingered, but it was tempered by a quiet resolve. Lucas started asking more questions. Why are you always free when I'm not around? And I'd deflect with work excuses. One day at the shop, he cornered me during break. Mom seems happier lately. You notice anything? My throat tightened, but I shrugged. Maybe she's just in a good place. He bought it for now. Marissa and I talked about telling him someday when the time felt right, but we weren't there yet. The fear of losing him, of blowing up our worlds, kept us cautious. Yet, in those hidden hours, we built something solid. She'd cook for me. We'd walk the neighborhood at dusk, hands brushing but not holding. I'd fix little things around her house, a creaky door, a flickering light, feeling like I was mending more than just hardware. She made me see potential in myself, pushing me to think about night classes or starting my own repair side gig. You're more than this shop, she'd say. And I believed her because she saw me that way. One crisp autumn night after a particularly intense evening where we almost got caught again, Lucas texting he was on his way home early, I walked out her front door, the cool air hitting my face. I paused on the porch, turning back to glance at the house. The living room light was still on, warm and golden through the curtains. I knew she was there, probably watching from the window, her silhouette faint but present. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, no rings, no dramatic revelations. Just us, two adults navigating something imperfect but genuine. We'd chosen each other, risks and all, and for now, that was enough. As I drove away, the city lights fading in my rear view, I felt a strange peace. Whatever came next, we'd face it. Together.